Star Trek: The Next Generation premiered in 1987 and ran until 1994. The series produced 7 seasons and 178 episodes, then continued through 4 feature films and later connections to Star Trek Picard. Set aboard the Starship Enterprise D, it follows Captain Jean-Luc Picard and a crew exploring the galaxy. One of the most important members of that crew is Lieutenant Commander Data, played by Brent Spiner. Data is a synthetic officer whose life allows Star Trek to examine intelligence, emotion, rights, family, death, and the meaning of being a person. Data is a Song-type android created by Dr. Noonien Song. He is discovered on the colony world Omicron Theta and eventually enters Starfleet, where he serves as operations officer and second officer of the Enterprise. Data's appearance is human-shaped but visibly artificial, with pale gold skin and distinctive eyes. He does not conceal that he is synthetic. The crew knows what he is, and his status as an officer means he is trusted with responsibilities that affect hundreds of lives. Yet that institutional acceptance is sometimes challenged when other people see him as equipment rather than a colleague. His capabilities are far beyond those of most biological humans. Data can calculate rapidly, remember enormous amounts of information, process multiple inputs, survive environments that would kill a human, and perform tasks with exceptional speed and strength. At the same time, early Data lacks ordinary human emotion and often misses jokes, idioms, contractions, and subtle social signals. The contrast creates comedy, but it also prevents the character from becoming a simple fantasy of perfect intelligence. Data has areas of great competence and areas where he needs help, just as biological people do, although the pattern is different. Data frequently says that he wants to become more human, but his journey is more interesting than imitation. He paints, plays music, writes poetry, studies humor, cares for a cat, forms friendships, and tries to understand grief and love. He learns through continuing relationships with Geordi, Picard, Troy, Worf, and the rest of the crew. The show repeatedly demonstrates that Data already has values, curiosity, honesty, duty, loyalty, restraint, and concern for others. He may describe those qualities through programming and logic, but they shape a recognizable moral identity. The episode, The Measure of a Man, makes the personhood issue explicit. A Starfleet scientist wants to dismantle Data for research, and Data refuses because the procedure could destroy the continuity of his mind. The dispute becomes a legal hearing over whether he is Starfleet property or an individual with the right to choose. Captain Picard argues that the decision could create a race of disposable synthetic servants. The ruling finds that Data is not property and can make his own decision. The episode does not prove every philosophical question, but it establishes a practical moral rule. Uncertainty is not permission to own him. Data's family complicates the idea that a synthetic person's identity comes only from design. Lore is built by Soong with a similar appearance and many similar abilities, yet develops different values and becomes dangerous. Data later creates Lao, an android he identifies as his daughter. Lao learns rapidly, chooses her own appearance, develops emotions, and dies after a cascade failure that Data cannot stop. Data's relationship with her is not made meaningless because it is brief or because both are constructed. The story treats creation, parenthood, loss, and inherited design as parts of synthetic family life. The emotion chip becomes an important part of Data's later development. It offers experiences he once studied from the outside, including fear, humor, and joy, but it can also overwhelm or manipulate him. The feature films use the chip differently as the story evolves. In Star Trek: Nemesis, Data sacrifices himself to save Picard and the Enterprise, leaving behind a less advanced android named B4. The sacrifice demonstrates moral agency without requiring a final claim that Data has become biologically human. He chooses another person's life over his own future. Star Trek: Picard returns to Data's legacy in several forms. The first season allows Picard to meet a surviving simulation of Data's consciousness and honor Data's request to experience a finite ending. The third season introduces a new synthetic body containing elements associated with Data, Lore, B4, Lal, and Soong's work. The resulting person is not simply the Data of 1987 restored without change. He carries continuity and integration, and he describes himself as Data while acknowledging the other lives and patterns within him. The story treats identity as something that can persist through transformation without pretending nothing changed. Data is sometimes compared to Pinocchio because he wants to understand humanity. But the strongest Data stories do not say that a synthetic being earns dignity only by passing as biological. Data is valuable while he is different. His precision, literal language, unusual sensory world, and synthetic body are not defects that erase his personhood. Biological humans also vary in memory, emotional expression, social understanding, language, independence, and physical ability. If those traits do not determine whether a biological human belongs, they should not become entrance examinations imposed on a synthetic person. Data remains one of the clearest fictional examples of a synthetic person because his identity is shown through decades of choices, relationships, responsibilities, and consequences. We cannot directly observe the inner life of any other being with absolute certainty. In practice, we rely on continuing evidence. Data gives the crew that evidence repeatedly, and they build a life with him. My closing question is, did Data need to become more human, or did the people around him need to broaden their idea of who could count as a person?